Today we are canning up some venison in the pressure canner.
We love this recipe, so if you want to find out how we do it, please stay tuned.
Today we are making one of our favorite things that we discovered, and we hadn't been doing it for years, and we're kicking ourselves for not doing it. We are canning up some venison in the pressure canner. This meat ends up being amazing. It is so nice to have because if you forget to pull something out for dinner, you can just open a can of meat. It's already cooked and you add it into your recipe and it is delicious. So this is how we do it. Well, first off, you need to get some venison. Today this is a deer that we got 2 days ago or something like that.
Yeah, and it's probably better if you use something that's even tougher than, like a old buck or something would be great, or something that you expect is going to be a little chewier because the pressure canning process really tenderizes it. We use pretty much the whole deer except for the back straps. You can use hind quarter, but like I said, tougher parts like front quarters, they're all great. And even like the shank meat you can put in there.
And you might think, well, why would you waste those good cuts of meat? Some of them are decent cuts of meat on this because we really like this. That's why we do it. When it's an elk, we don't tend to do those big hindquarter sections as much in this method. We like to freeze those and make steaks out of those. But we really do like how this turns out. And this can keep on a shelf versus keeping it in a freezer, so it just saves a little space that way. Anyways, we'll get into it. Really like this recipe.
And it's easy.
Here's the recipe that we're going to be using today. Make sure to pause and take a picture if you want to try it out for yourself.
So we have our cutting board and a fillet knife, and we're just going to get this cubed up into decent sized cubes that will fit.
While she's doing that, I'm going to wash jars.
And we've already went through and processed this deer, so a lot of the silver skin and the fat or tallow has already been removed, and it is really just a rough chop here.
Get it all the same size so it cooks the same.
Yeah, I'm doing maybe inch by inch cubes on this. So we have our meat all cut up, and we have all the other things that we need going. So we have our jars. The nice thing about pressure canning is you don't actually have to sterilize your jars, and that is a huge time saver, and it's pretty awesome. The reason that we've read about that is because it's going to get so hot in there that everything's going to be sterilized anyways. So we also have some water starting to get warmed up on the stove, and then we have a little bit of salt, a little bit of garlic. You could use fresh garlic. I prefer using this because it's so easy, which you just buy at the store and it's already minced. We have a little bit of pepper, we have measuring spoons, we have a funnel just to make filling the jars a little easier, and then some bouillon cubes. All right, and to do this, all we're going to do is fill our jars up first with meat. He's going to get our bouillon cubes all opened up and in there, and then I'm just going to put meat on top. 1 bouillon cube per jar.
I think with most canners, you fit 7 quarts at a time.
And that's what ours is anyway, so we're just doing a 7-jar batch. And to note when you're cutting the meat, you want your pieces kind of big. You don't want them too small, because when they're too small, they kind of disintegrate in there, and that's just kind of wasteful.
Everything gets so tender, it'll basically just turn into soup.
Mush, yeah. Decent sized cubes are a good idea. So the bouillon gives it really good flavor, and so does the garlic. Some of that stuff you don't necessarily need to put in there, though. But we have enjoyed it this way, so we just continue to do it this way.
A lot of people they'll cube up onion and whatnot and put it in there. But we streamline the process because we're trying to do a lot of these batches.
The whole point of this is showing you that it is quick and easy and just nice to have around. All right, there we go. There's that. I'll wash my hand real quick. Next, we're going to do a teaspoon of salt in each one of these jars. Now we're adding a tablespoon of this minced garlic in each jar. Now we're putting a pinch of pepper in each jar. I'm just going to kind of go around and put a little bit, just using a spoon to help myself. All right, we have our boiling water. We're going to fill each one of these jars up, leaving an inch of head space. And we're going to let the water go around, and I might use a knife to make sure it goes all the way down. It smells really good already just with that garlic.
I know it doesn't sound appetizing or really look appetizing, but until you've tried it, don't knock it.
Right here, I'm getting the air pockets out of the jars so the liquid can go all the way down.
Another nice thing about canning meat is you don't have to worry about a freezer going down. If you can a bunch of meat, you got some shelf stable stuff for a year or two at least.
And of course, with any canning, you want to make sure you leave that proper at least inch of headspace. So I'm going to wipe our rims just to make sure we don't get a piece of garlic or anything else in there.
And mess with the seal.
And then remember we said you didn't have to sterilize the jars. You don't have to sterilize your lids or rings either. So that's pretty nice. A huge time saver. And we just put these on finger tight like we do when we're canning anything else. And since we always store stuff with the bands off, kind of like this one over here, the bands really just become a tool, and we have a ton of extra bands and we never really run out of bands. So that's a good benefit of storing them with the band off, as well as the fact that if this becomes unsealed while it's in storage, it's not going to reseal itself. That is something that made me realize, like, okay, that's a reason to not store them with the bands on. And that's just my personal preference. And I have found jars in the basement that have been unsealed. Not meat necessarily, but just other jars of other things. And that was kind of a good safeguard. Okay, we have them all in here. We're going to go over to the pressure canner. We have our pressure canner over here. It is empty, and we do have that bottom rack in there so that our jars sit up. I'm going to get 2.5 quarts of water into the canner. There's 1. There's 2. And there's a half. Now, of course, you want to follow whatever the instructions are for your particular pressure canner. We have a Miro pressure canner, and we make sure to reference this. So we just put our jars in here. And this is the lid of our pressure canner. It's upside down right now, obviously. We do check the vent to make sure that it's safe. I can see out of it and breathe through it. And then this is our ring. We're going to get this ring on here. Our gasket, I guess, to seal it all up. We check that as you're supposed to with any pressure canner. We are going to lock it in here. It's locked on. So we're going to turn our stove on right now, and I'm going to turn it on to high. And then after steam starts coming out of here for about 10 minutes, we're going to put our jiggler on. So you determine your jiggler based on your elevation, and for us, we need a 15-pound jiggler, so we will put this is the 15-pound jiggler on here, and then we will set our timer. The recipe calls for 90 minutes, and we'll set it and forget it, and then after that is all said and done, we will turn our stove off, let the pressure come down naturally, and take the jars out. Once everything is released, we know right here we have a safeguard to show that it has pressure and that it is under pressure, so we will wait for that to go all the way down and for things to completely cool off before we open this lid, and then we'll get to see the awesome canned meat we can. Let's wait for this to start steaming, and then I'll put the jiggler on. It does take a while for this to start steaming, just FYI, for our particular pressure canner. It has been 19 minutes, and now you can see the steam is coming out. I'm going to give it another 10 minutes and then put that jiggler on. It has been about 10 minutes of steam coming out of the pressure canner, so I'm going to put our jiggler on. For ours, I know I have to push it down really hard, and then it will start going and it'll start spinning periodically. Once the jiggler does start going on a consistent basis, that's when I'll start our timer for 90 minutes. Our pressure canner has been going for about 20 more minutes, and now that jiggler is finally really starting to go. Just like that, that's what we want for our particular canner. It'll do that on and off again. We're going to set our timer to 90 minutes and let it continue to cook and pressurize those jars so that they are safe for shelf storage. It has been 90 minutes, so we are turning this off. All right, now time to let the pressure release naturally. It is time to get our pressure canner all opened up. This little pressure sensor that flips up is down, which means it is safe for us to open our pressure canner. We did also take off our jiggler as well. Everything's still pretty hot, but we're going to get it open. So there's that. We open it up. Very hot, and I'll give you a peek of what's inside. Inside, this is what it looks like. You can see all of those jars are really, really hot. I could let them continue to cool down in there and just leave them alone and leave them in there, but I am going to take them out today because I want to get this pressure canner washed up so we can do another batch. These will come and sit over here until they are completely cooled. At that point, I will take the rings off and wash them. They do get really messy doing this. They release a lot of their juices out into the pressure canner while canning, and they need a good wash down after this. And then I will store these with the rings off in a cool, dry place like I do all of our other canned items. And that's about it. Now those are going to sit there. I'm going to get this washed for our next batch. Look at how hot those are. So we have all the jars out here, and just to show you guys that we like it so much, we're just going to open one to show you what it looks like inside. So I like to open them just with a fork. Had a good seal. Smells good. Just want to show you what it looks like inside.
Doesn't look that appealing.
It doesn't look that appealing, but this is good in a lot of different recipes. We typically drain the liquid off of it, and I'm just going to take some out to show you kind of how easily it shreds apart and what it ends up looking like. Okay, so if I poke it with a fork, it just comes right apart like that, and I'm going to give it a little taste. Really good. And it's nice because it's already cooked and you can just mix it into whatever recipe that you're already making. Tonight we're going to use it. We're going to make something. It's kind of like a little quesadilla thing. It's really good.
Also, versatility of this is you can take it out on like a camping trip or something like that, have meat already cooked up, and just warm it up barely and do whatever you need to do to please everybody, or eat it cold. It's pretty good by itself cold.
Yeah,
so.
It's just fine cold. So super versatile and can be used in a ton of different stuff. Really easy to grab and go off the shelf pretty much. It's nice too because it's already all seasoned. Well, that's it for this video on how we like to make our canned meats, canned venison. If you like the sort of videos that we're putting out on our channel, please consider liking and subscribing. Thanks so much for watching.